Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We're so happy to have you. And Miss Jonna Hudson today is going to talk to us about finance and lots of different things like that. And I'm Peggy Beauregard, and we are the Nest Egg Builder. And our job, which we love, anyway, I do, I love real estate, is to empower people to build their wealth consistently by passively investing in commercial real estate. And I have this quote. I love to find quotes about the person that's going to present. And when you hear Jonna's bio about her, you will get why I use this. Let the door swing both ways. Look into someone's eyes and see the power within. Glasses. Alan Alda said, begin challenging your own assumptions. Your assumptions are your window on the world. Scrub them off every once in a while, or the light won't come in. So I have to tell you about Jonna. She's unbelievable. Jonna Hudson is a seasoned financial strategist with a diverse background spanning over 26 years in the automotive and financial sectors. Beginning her career early at a Volkswagen dealership and earning business degree with a concentration in accounting, Jonna spent her early 3 decades with GMAC and GM. Her role included updating systems for the year 2000 transition in GMAC's comptroller department and estimating
one moment. Yes.
automotive component systems. Thank you. With GM's cost engineering department. She holds a design for, are you ready? 6 Sigma black belt. Who would think that? Jonna has a passion for numbers and financial planning. During college, she authored solutions and exercises for a personal financial planning textbook. Her expertise extends to creating sophisticated financial models for retirement savings and cash flows. In 2019, Jonna left her corporate job to pursue travel and becoming a travel agent. However, COVID redirected her focus to refining her financial strategies. She discovered a need to address retirement tax issues and turned to commercial real estate and life insurance products as partial solutions. Jonna is now a licensed life insurance agent in Washington and Oregon. She is dedicated to strategies that minimize taxes, maximize cash flows, facilitate efficient wealth transfers between generations. She is passionate about sharing her insights to help others navigate complex financial landscapes, which is what we are going to hear about today. So thank you, Jonna, for being here, and please take it away.
Thank you, Peggy. Let me get my presentation started. It's good to be here presenting. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let me make sure. Yep, I can advance. All right, so today we are going to talk about tax changes. There's a lot in this presentation. I am going to breeze through many of these pretty quickly. I've highlighted the ones that I think have the biggest impact to the largest number of people. I have, however, stated the section that the IRS section. Oh, we have 1 moment, please. We are sharing with notes. Okay. 1 moment, I'm going to reshare. I apologize. Hold on, Peggy, now I've lost my share button. There it is. Share. I want you guys to see my secret notes. Okay, that's better. Okay, the big picture. The national debt yesterday was $35.35 trillion at the interest rate of 3.33%. The annual payment is $1.8 trillion per year. That's 54% of the taxes, the 2.18 million that they collected in 2023, just to service the interest on the debt. And this is what is causing these tax changes. The government can and will continue to increase tax revenues to pay our debt. We're going to talk about tax laws. Tax law changes that are going to impact our future taxes include the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which is going to expire in 2026. We're not going to talk about that today. The SECUE Act that was enacted in December of 2019. There's one change we're going to talk about, and then the rest are all from the SECUE Act 2.0, which was enacted at the end of 2022. Many of those changes continue to go in effect through the next couple of years. And all of these changes, the majority of these changes are already in effect. If they're not in effect or there's a retro process, I will denote those. Otherwise, assume they're all in effect. I'm not a tax professional. I've simply read through all the tax changes. I have an interest in this. And I did it primarily for my own financial wellness. As always, you should seek the advice of a licensed tax professional to assist you with your decision-making process before taking action. The changes, I've divided the changes. We're only going to talk about the changes today that affect individuals. There's also changes that affect organizations and small businesses, whatnot, but we're not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about the taxpayer. I've divided those into 5 categories: saving for retirement, catch-up contributions, early withdrawal, retirement, and legacy. Okay, saving for retirement, and while this may not apply to a lot of us here, it does apply to our families, our children, our grandchildren, and it's good to know. So the first one is automatic. Oh, before I get started, these changes are not necessarily good or bad. It all depends on your situation. So some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are just corrections and balancing, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But saving for retirement, automatic enrollment, all employers have to offer automatic enrollment in annual increases. Employees can opt out of them, but they do have to opt out of them. Otherwise, they're automatically enrolled in retirement savings. The savings match, we've had a savings match. You filed for that on your income tax return, and it was given to you as part of your income tax return. It will no longer be returned to those that are eligible for them. It will be put in their retirement account.
What does that mean?
So for low and middle income people, to incentivize them to save for the retirement, there was a tax credit that they were allowed to file for. Now when they get that match, it goes into the retirement account. They don't get the cash.
So they just got a credit on their return.
Yeah.
Didn't have anything to do with the match. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. Employers match. Employers match are allowed to be put into Roth. Prior to this change, they had to go into your taxable account. Most employers, what I'm hearing, have not instituted this change yet. But matches, it's something people should ask for, is can my match go in my Roth, especially if they're in a low income bracket. This one I really like. Many young people coming out of college, because of the cost of college, don't contribute to their retirement savings in the early years where they really has the biggest bang for the buck, because they're paying student loans. So now they can ask to have their matching contributions pay down their student loans so they can get that taken care of and start saving for retirement. I like that one a lot. And then convert unused educational savings into a Roth IRA. If you have an educational savings for your children and they didn't use it all and it's 15 years old, you can convert it into a Roth IRA for them, not for you, for them.
Oh.
So that's a cool one for me, because I do, and my son is having my first grandbaby, and I'm able to convert his education fund into a Roth for him,
But not to the grandbabies.
not to the grandbabies. But he can, this will allow them to,
Do they
trust
have
me,
to have a job to get that Roth?
no,
Okay, good.
no, that's another way. All right, catch-up contributions. Catch-up contributions weren't indexed. Contributions for an IRA. At age 50, you can start putting $1,000 in extra into an IRA. Starting with tax year 2025, that will be indexed. Higher catch-up contributions. This is for like an employer retirement plan. Ages 60, 61, 62, and 63 increases to the greater of $10,000 or 50% more than the regular catch-up contribution, which is currently at $7,500 and will also index for inflation. This next one, I think this is a big one. Catch-up contributions are now subject to Roth tax treatment. And this is a big deal. This is one of the ways they're going to shore up their balance sheet is when you're doing catch-up contributions, you're at your higher income levels and you're going to pay the taxes at those higher income levels for catch-up contributions. But then you're done with it, right? Then you have some tax-free money in retirement. So that one's a double-edged sword in my opinion. Early withdrawal, I like this one too. I see it being abused, but
nobody here can do early withdrawal because they all meet the guideline to start regular withdrawals.
yeah. But if you know somebody, right? I'll breeze through these. That's why I didn't highlight them. That basically anybody that thinks they're having a crisis can take $1,000 out without the 10% penalty, and they can repay it back in 3 years and get a refund on their taxes. For various situations. These are all just different situations. So disasters, illness,
Babies.
births, and adoptions, yes. All right, retirement. Now we're getting to the meat of the bones. QLACs, which are an inexpensive way to make sure you don't run out of money. But most people didn't qualify for them because they had a 25% limit. It was a calculation, and I don't want to get into this calculation, but they are going to repeal that 25% limit and allow up to $200,000 of your account balance to be used towards a QLAC annuity contract. There were also barriers to, and this is a little bit what we were talking about, Peggy. There were barriers to taking life annuities in these RMD calculations. And these are what I would call course correct. The IRS has course corrected to remove those barriers. And so annuities, life annuities, all those things are getting easier. And we'll talk about a few more changes associated with that. The other one was partial annuities. Complicated the calculation of the required minimum distributions, and now they can be aggregated into a simpler calculation. This next one that I've highlighted, this is a big one, and I do have a scenario at the end, is increasing the required minimum distribution age. What this does is it changes the table that they use, it compresses it, making each year that you take RMDs larger. And anytime you increase incrementally, that increases tax at your highest tax bracket at your marginal rate, or can push you into the next tax bracket. And I'll show you the magnitude of this change. This is a rather large change.
What does that mean?
Previously, prior to 2023, you didn't have to take money out of a taxable account until you were age 72.
Right.
In 2023, it went to 73. And in 2033, it goes to age 75. But that means that each year you have to take a larger amount.
So they get it one way or the other.
Yes, and that larger amount, that incremental amount, is going to be taxed at your highest tax bracket, right? You know, because you don't pay the same amount of tax on every dollar that you take. The first 10,000 are tax-free, right, or your exemption, and it ratchets up. So the way our taxes are, and if it pushes you into a new tax bracket, let's say you're in the 12%, it pushes into 22, everything over the line gets taxed at 22.
Why do they have you take it when you're so young? Why don't
And-
they have it set up for like 80 or 85?
Well, it would make the problem even worse. What
Okay,
I'm going to recommend is you get it out as soon as you can afford to get it out. You roll it to Roth or whatever.
can't roll it, I checked.
You can, if you roll it before your RMD, then you don't, then your
Oh,
RMD.
you could roll that, yes, but you
Yeah.
can't roll the RMD. I tried.
Okay.
I
That would
tried.
be a change, too, right? Because you still have to pay the taxes when you do the rollover. Why not?
It was fine, but they wouldn't let me roll it into my Roth.
The next one, recovery of retirement plans. If your retirement plan made an error, you had to pay it back. Now they have the latitude of not having you pay it back. This one I think is a big one, is reduction for failure to take an RMD. Currently the penalty was 50%. They've reduced it to 25%. And then it's reduced further to 10% if you basically correct it and take the RMD. But this one's going to be interesting to see what happens if you failure to take it in 1 year and correct it in the next year and you're in a lower tax bracket, how that impacts you. Especially if you get a large lump sum of money, and it may be beneficial just not to take your RMD and pay the penalty, pay it back. Statute of limitations for excess contributions, failure to take your RMD. Those weren't limited. You had to fill out a form 5329. They are now limited to 3 years. And so that's just easier, I think, for them to track these. And then simplification and standard rollover process. Every company, every fund has their own form, and it can be quite confusing. And so the government has said, all right, we're going to simplify this. We're going to come out with a sample. And when the government does that, most people adopt the government form. So hopefully there'll be one form to roll all your things at once. Charitable distributions. Now this one is specifically for IRAs, not like 401ks. Expands IRA charitable distribution provision to allow for a one-time $50K distribution to charities through annuity type gifts. Currently that wasn't allowed from an IRA. So you can set up an annuity to a charity on an IRA for $50K. And then the QCDs, the qualified charitable distributions, will now, that amount was 100,000 in 2023. It indexed to 105 and will continue to index with inflation. All right, and then inherited distributions, and this I think for all of us that have money and children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, inherited distributions. Prior to this change, and this actually is the SECUE Act from 2019 that made this change. Prior to this change, your beneficiaries had until their RMD schedule, which in general was age 99, to take distributions from a taxable account. They now only have 10 years. This is problematic because on average, people inherit their parents' assets around age 60, which is also their peak earning years. And so they're going to pay a lot of taxes on their inheritance. And then they clarified inherited Roths. They have to take those in 10 years as well, which means they'll have to move them into a taxable account or maybe invest in commercial real estate.
Not into a Roth?
If you inherit a Roth, you only have 10 years. You have to take it out within 10 years. You only get that tax shelter for 10 years.
So can't you roll it into a Roth?
You can't roll an inherited Roth into your Roth.
Do you owe taxes on it?
No taxes, but wherever you put it will become taxable after you take it out of the Roth.
You take it out, then you can make your contributions to the Roth, but you can only make whatever the limit is.
Correct. But you can't indefinitely leave it in your parents' Roth and avoid taxes.
Yeah, well, when you're only 2 years old, when you receive it, you're not going to know what to do when you're 12.
Free death distributions. This is for employer plans. It was required that you had to start taking Roth before in your lifetime distributions. That's been eliminated to be consistent with non-employer Roths. And survivor spouse elections, they had a special calculation for RMDs. Now they will be, those funds, if you inherit a 401k or a retirement plan from your spouse, for RMD calculations, it will be treated as if you are the employee, not the spouse. It's a more favorable treatment. Miscellaneous, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on these. Savings bonds, they're going to require, the federal government's going to assist states in helping people find lost savings bonds, right? Kind of probably like escheatables, where you can go in and just put in your name, Social Security, and it tells you whether you have bonds in your name, which is interesting because I received bonds as a baby, and I can promise you my siblings don't know where theirs are. Variable annuities, they didn't have the ability in variable annuities to invest in EFTs. They will, but that one doesn't go in effect until 2029, but they will be able to invest in EFTs through variable annuities. Retirement savings lost and found, same thing, a database, and that should go effective the end of this year. So if you have an old employer, or you've worked for somebody, can't remember who it was, but remember having money taken out, you will be able to find that. And then grants are for ownership, for employee-owned companies. We have a couple of them out here in California on the West Coast, Winco and Bimart, I think, are employee-owned. Bob's Red Mill, right? He gave that to his employees. All right, now we're going to get into some strategies. Number one, always discuss these changes and their impact with your tax advisor. Not your financial planner, your tax advisor, and I'll get a little bit into that in a minute. Forecast your cash flows and taxes over your lifetime and beyond. So just knowing where you are, where you have problems. Most people are short cash early in retirement. Once they get to 75, these RMDs turn on, they've got their Social Security, they've got too much money, now they're paying too much taxes, and their spending goes down. So manage your cash flows to the top of the lowest tax bracket possible. So if you're in a tax bracket, let's say you're in the 12% tax bracket because you just retired and you don't have your income anymore, and you got $20,000 more, roll that $20,000, use that whole tax bracket up. Charitable contribution strategies, I could do a whole presentation on different ways to donating to charity. Basically, the idea there is to take most people can't take a deduction for charitable contributions because of the standard deductions, but you can create a fund, pool your lifetime giving, and give it all in one tax year and take the benefit. Tax advantage income producing investments like commercial real estate. Again, we can do a more complex presentation just on that topic alone. Match tax strategies to investment type. For example, debt is good in a Roth because you don't have to pay the taxes on the debt, and there's no equity anyway, or no depreciation anyway. So that's just matching those strategies with the tax bucket. And plan the tax impact of the death of the first spouse. I think this is one many people leave, right? That they don't think about what happens when the first one goes. Now you've lost your tax shelter, your taxes have gone up, you have life insurance proceeds, and it's a good time to jettison some money to your kids and rearrange. But know what you're going to do when that happens, whatever that strategy is. All right, I'm going to go through this scenario, and this is on the R&D strategy, and then we'll open it for questions, okay? All right, so we have a married couple here. individual 1, individual 2. Individual 1 is age 55. They have $600,000 in a taxable retirement account. If they, before this change, they would have started their RMDs at age 72. And their starting year RMDs would have been $57,367. Now, if they have to delay till 75, their first distribution will now be over $76,000. That's an increase of 19,000 taxable dollars. And then the other one, a little bit older, a little less money in their taxable account, but you see it's still a $10,000 increase. Now, this also shows the power, if you're short money in retirement, of delaying taking money out of your retirement. But this impact on just $1 million in taxable accounts for a couple ends up being $30,000 taxable in the first year, and these RMDs get bigger every year. And so you can see over 20-year period, this is a lot, right? It's a lot of taxes, and so the government will find ways to get money from the taxpayers. The easiest way for the government to collect money is through payroll taxes and withholding of retirement savings, because it comes out automatic, right? You don't have to write them a check.
But you here,
you what?
for MD, that's now considered income again, even though you paid taxes on it.
Yes. Depending on who's sending it to you, some take out the money, withhold before they give you the money, and then you have to file for the difference. So depends on where it is. So as you can see, these are they're all little changes, and they impact, but they start to compound on top of each other and end up being a lot of money. A lot of money. So the other thing to remember is the required minimum distribution. That's when you have to take it. And one of the strategies is to take it before that, right? Start taking it. Just because they say you have to take it at 75 doesn't mean you can't start either converting it. And when I say take it, I mean either take a distribution or convert it to Roth and get the taxes over with. There's a good case to be made for couples having one retire early, drop the income, and start converting.
So the key, thank you very, very much for this. So the key is to have a Roth. But what happens if you've already got this 401k?
That's correct. So my daughter is 35, high earner. We front loaded her Roth, but she's now gotten to the point where she has to start doing some, has to start doing some pre-tax savings. And then Roth wasn't available for me. And so I'm heavily loaded in the taxable. And that's why I have an interest in this subject. And for many of this, it's the difference between a good retirement and a very good retirement. We can either pay it to the government, or we can start learning the strategies and be able to spend it or give it to our children or donate it to a charity.
But you're only allowed to do 50,000 over the lifetime?
Of what?
You said the charity is, you can do a one-time 50,000. Is that once a year?
That's into an annuity type gift.
No, it's a charity.
Yes, but it's taking it so that the charity gets a payment every year.
Of 50,000.
Yeah, that's because that extends beyond your lifetime. Right. So they're limiting how much you can put in. But
okay. I misread that. I thought it said you could only make a one-time donation of $50,000
to an annuity type gift that before you couldn't make them.
Why can't I donate to whatever I want?
You can. You
As
can
a 501.
You can create a donor advised fund and donate whatever you want.
Right. Then it could go change.
If you want to leave an income stream to a charity, it is limited.
No, I want to leave it to a lot of different things, to the
Well, you
things
can do
that
that.
count
You,
the most.
you can do that today and before this change through a donor advised fund. But the secret, not the secret, but the strategy is to be able to get the tax deduction. Right now, you can't get the tax deduction if you don't itemize.
Okay,
So one way to be able to itemize is to bundle all your years in one year, or in a year where you are itemizing, and take all your years of donations in one tax year by creating a donor advised fund. The cool thing about a donor advised fund is that it continues to grow. Right? So let's say you take in 2024, you take $100,000, put it in a donor advised fund. Every year you have to write a check to your charities out of that, but it grows just like it's in any other fund, right?
like, so it's like in a savings account type thing.
Well, most of these are invested in stock portfolios, and I know that's not your thing, but the
It's
interesting,
my thing, because I want my 50,000 to be there. I don't want it to be down to nothing.
well, it'd be interesting if you can do a donor advised fund invested in
Real estate. Yep.
Well, here's a question I can't answer.
Okay. I have another question,
Okay.
and that was on your QLAC, is that what you call it? QLAC?
Yep.
So I forgot what that was, but I did not understand why the government has the right to tell you. I mean, I don't understand. So if you make more than 200, you can't have one. Why? What difference does it make to them?
Well, the issue here was, and this is where they're sort of course correcting to make the tax law actually make sense. If you set up,
I'm sorry, that was a joke, right? What? Nobody's laughing except me. Tax law
no,
makes absolutely no sense.
but the law before this made no sense. And the reason is the QLAC is conserving money so you don't run out of money, right?
Right, so why can't anybody do it? They're making the assumption that if you make a lot of money, you also know how to save and you know how to invest, and that's totally incorrect.
But what was prohibiting why people didn't buy a QLAC is because the R&D rules made you start taking the money at 75 before you needed the QLAC. So
Right.
the R&D and the QLAC rules were conflicting, and this change makes it possible to be able to conserve that money to make sure you don't run out of money. So that was more of an administrative change to make these laws make sense together.
Well, whole life policy would do that also.
Yeah, so whole life policy will do that, right? And we just talked about, so I think Clarence jumped on, Peggy and I were talking about taking money out of your taxable accounts and putting it into a life insurance policy. And I have done it into a life insurance backed annuity policy. And so I know that one's possible. Now, whether you can put it into whole life, we could dig into the details on that one.
Yep, I got somebody digging on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and she used the word roll.
yeah. So I did. I took my pension, put it in my IRA, took that same amount money out of my IRA, and bought what's called a hybrid annuity, so that I have cash flows like a pension that I can't outlive. Right?
Except that you took receipt of the funds.
Did not.
You did not take receipt of the funds. Okay.
It went right from my qualified fund to the life insurance company.
Yeah, so the life insurance company made took the money directly from the account.
That's right. And one of the reasons
Pay the taxes.
yes, one of the reasons I did it is my pension was taxable, but did not qualify as an RMD. By running it through my annuity payment, still taxable when I take the payment, but qualifies as an RMD.
Does that make a difference on taxes? You have to pay it as income anyway.
Makes a difference on how much you have to take out when you're in those RMD years. So I can go longer not taking it out, or I could be converting, because you couldn't convert to the Roth, but because I already take my payment as an RMD, now I can roll to Roth for more years. So,
Right.
with that, I also picked up a long-term care rider. I also picked up on period certain, which means for 20 years. If I die before the 20 years, my kids, my family would get my money, where with a pension, it's just gone, right? If your spouse is gone, it would be gone.
So this isn't a life insurance policy, the riders you took.
It is.
Right.
So you can add riders on that make most sense to you if it's in a life insurance policy. So,
Okay. Or
And
you
that-
can, I don't know, the way they talk about it's just built right in, but they're probably riders, just like you said.
yeah. And if anything happens to me, I would have had to take a significant reduction in my pension payment for my husband to be a surviving spouse, where I don't have to on my life insurance policy. Right.
And that's not taxable. So he
Well,
can inherit that and not
Well,
have to pay taxes.
he takes the payment for his life, and that would be taxable to him. But
When he takes the money out, but the policy itself and whatever is in it is not taxable
correct, the death benefit.
when he inherits it.
So life insurance is getting quite complicated in the number of options that you can get, but there are options out there. So my long-term rider is, if I need to bring help in, my annuity payment doubles to help pay for that help.
Your annuity payment to you doubles. And then you still have to pay taxes on it. Okay. Yeah, it's complicated, all right. You need to talk to your tax advisor.
Yes, but the financial planners, I just separated from my financial planners because I want my money out of my taxable account, and they don't put it out because their commission's based on it being in. And if I convert
Right.
it, I need to take the money out to pay the taxes, and it's less. So
Yep. They're working for themselves, they're not working for their clients.
yeah, there's an inherent conflict of interest with financial planners, and that's why I recommend that you have this conversation with a tax professional, not
Yep.
a financial.
So, Clarence, do you have any questions? I think you had a dozen or so.
Well, it's a little over my head. I mean, the only thing I understand is that the more of your money you have in a Roth, the better off you are. But it's hard to get a great deal of money in a Roth unless you're a great investor, or you can pull shenanigans like Peter Thiel.
Yes,
So-
well, there is
But-
Peter Thiel.
Right, but and some of these laws might have been written in response to him, like the inherited portion, not going on in perpetuity and having to be distributed.
Maybe.
But yeah, so I mean, it sounds like it's a lot more complicated. I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns. What Jonna did sounds like she took her pension and transferred it to an annuity product.
Some of it.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like all of it, but
Yeah, I
maybe
did. Clarence, I took my pension lump sum.
Right.
I came in late, and they didn't fund my pension very long. It was a waste. It wasn't a whole lot of money, and so I took it lump sum. The other thing is General Motors year after year after year cuts people's benefits, right? For my whole career, I was in that phase where they kept cutting your benefits, and so quite honestly, I didn't trust them.
Right. In your situation, I mean, you were allowed to do that, but is that pension by pension? Does it depend on who has your pension?
It does, whether you can take it lump sum or not. But I took it lump sum. Again, I didn't touch it. I never touched the money. It went from my pension fund into my IRA.
And
then-
you did not have to pay taxes on it, correct?
That's
No.
correct.
Yeah,
I did.
and the reason you didn't have to was because you put it direct in that vehicle you put it in, and then on the other side of that vehicle, you bought your annuity.
Yes, I put it in an IRA. Yep.
Okay.
I bought my annuity from my IRA. Yep.
The Roth IRA.
No, it's in a
No.
taxable.
Oh, it's in a taxable IRA.
I would have put it in a Roth. You can do that, right? And the year you retire, especially if you retire mid-year and you have partial income, you have room in your tax bracket. That's why I said you have to manage to the top of a tax bracket. If my issue was my husband still works, right? So we were not in a lower tax bracket. But if you can afford to pay the taxes on your pension and roll that to your Roth, yeah. Then the income stream that you create, then if you bought it from a Roth, that annuity payment would be tax-free to you.
Hmm.
So
Of course, if it's in a Roth, that means you did pay the taxes on it.
Mhm.
So you could have just bought that annuity without going through the Roth.
correct.
But wait a minute.
No, but she was working on avoiding taxes.
No, understand, but let me ask for this distinction. So you withdraw your pension. You have two choices. One, put it in a Roth. Two, put it in an annuity. If you put it in the Roth and then have the Roth buy the annuity, then the income from the annuity is tax-free. If you just purchase the annuity without putting it into the Roth, but you've purchased it with after-tax money, is the annuity tax-free?
The return of capital is the portion that's a return of the capital is the portion that's growth on the money is taxable, but it's very small, right?
Okay, but in a Roth, you wouldn't even have to pay taxes on the growth. Okay,
But you'd have to pay it at the conversion at the time you took the funds.
right.
So we are under the through 26. It'll be interesting to see what happens in 2026, whether Congress renews the current tax structure. We could go back to having exemptions and itemized deductions separately, which changes the game. It also sends the capital tax back to where it was before 2017. I don't think Congress is going to do nothing, but this whole game changes again when the current tax laws expire, and those are mostly related to tax brackets. But right now, taxes are historically low. If you can pay them right now, I recommend you do that.
Yeah, especially if you want to roll into your Roth. This is the time to do it because
Yeah.
in 2026, I believe, taxes change. So you have 2 years to do that.
And then the other one, which is a Peggy idea that she shared with me, is to invest in a heavy value add, right? Self-direct from a taxable account into a heavy value add. When you're in the value add phase, the valuation of commercial real estate's based on NOI, your NOI drops, convert at that point, and then all of the rest of the gains go into your Roth.
Right.
So
That's right. I did that several times to get everything out of my traditional into the Roth. Yes, I had to pay taxes. Yes, but I got it converted.
Yeah, sometimes you pay anyway. You know, that's one reason why I might just pay the taxes on this exchange. I'm not overly worried about it.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, no. Choices.
yeah,
Keep your choices and options open until the choice and option makes a decision for you.
right. Well, and you know, I mean,
That'll
5
tell
years
you.
from now, long-term capital gains may be lower, they may be higher, but
They may be the same.
they may be the same.
Changed them in I don't know how many years, so
Yeah.
get it. They don't have anything else to do. We need to send them home. They don't need to sit around in Congress. Congress didn't used to meet all year round. It used to meet for a month or two because it took 6 weeks to get there when you were in a horse and buggy. And you had a business to run. So you were to go home and run your business.
Yeah, well,
We don't have that today.
They make too much money to run a
They
business.
need to go home and run their businesses. They need to understand what it is to run a business before they can start making laws about what businesses can and cannot do. In my opinion, anyway. You already knew it was my opinion. So Ted, do you have any comments? We're not quite to the top of the hour. This is your background a bit.
Well, based on a number of the things that have been said, let's say comment that I often use in this case is elections have consequences.
Yes. You know, I was on a call today with Danny Flores, whom you may know as he's a sponsor for multifamily, mostly in Houston. In Tucson. And we were talking about how many people are not investing this year because of the elections. And I'm like, why would anybody stop themselves from moving forward at an election which doesn't change our government? We have three parts of the government, and they're all supposed to work together, which we know that doesn't happen, and balance. And the president is only one portion of that. We still have Congress, which is, a pretty big part, and then we have the Supreme Court. Do you really think anything's going to change when the next president comes in? We'll have plenty to blame on the old president, which set up the policies for the new president, who might, I don't know. I don't understand why we have a Congress and a country that is not cooperating and working together. But the president only holds one portion of the third of our balance system.
So the reason I started with the national debt, right, is for exactly that reason, Ted. Without getting into a political discussion, I think we always have to be cognizant of the fact that we already have this debt. And if we have an administration that goes in and if they cut taxes for popularity reasons, the tax rates, that debt grows, we're still going to pay the debt. Now, some of us in here we may be able to escape the end result, but it will eventually catch us, right? It will catch us. This looming debt has to be paid, right? And
Why?
well, it doesn't all have to be paid off, but it has to be serviced. Because we
Yes.
borrow money from other people. And so that interest payment, that's why I only talked about the interest payment, because I'm with you. It's most of us, I don't know if I'll ever pay off my house, right? If it's advantageous for me to do it, I will. But other than that, my interest rate's so low, why would I do that? I'm with you. But at some point, if the balance kept growing, that payment would swamp me and I wouldn't be able to maintain it. So it's now 54% of what they collect from us. And that's a lot. Historically, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So
Maybe the rhetorical question to ask is, if we're going to ask why should we pay it off, then why does if we were to say we don't want to pay it off, then of what value is it to be a lender?
Well, it'd be wonderful to pay it off, but I remember when we hit 60% of debt to GDP, and they were saying that that's the point where additional debt becomes counterproductive. It doesn't add anything, it starts detracting. And now I know we're well over 100%. And Cheney said deficits don't matter or debt doesn't matter. And I thought it was a ridiculous statement, but since he's made it, the debt has grown hugely.
From a lender's point of view, why do you want to lend money to somebody who won't pay it back?
Well, from a lender's point of view, if you can create money from nothing and make some return on it, why not? That's what they're doing. That's what they've been doing. That's why there's such huge inflation and so much money in the system, is because they get to fabricate money. We used to say they printed it, but actually they digitize it.
Mhm.
And there seem to be borrowers for it. It's called the Treasury. They're consistently borrowing. So, you know, they used to talk about the bond vigilantes, and they would rebel and not buy the bonds. But it seems like there are the Federal Reserve or certain buyers that will step into that void. I mean, the Treasury continues to get funded, even though we're running obscene deficits. So yeah, maybe at some point that will happen, but when?
You know, I do believe, Clarence, that deficit spending is the first problem that has to be riled in. And the other reason to pay the debt down is during times of crisis, we do need to go into deficit spending to be able to affect what goes on. But during good times, and we're back in good times again, we should not have deficit spending. Many states don't have deficit spending in their governments, and we should not be in deficit spending, and we should be paying.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. The problem is for the last 2 or 3 years, using as an example, we had exactly those good times that you're talking about. And a lot of analysts attribute that to the fact that there was such huge deficit spending. So there's been huge deficit spending
Mhm.
for the past several years.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
part of the problem is our government doesn't handle its own money, which we, in the Constitution, it says that we are supposed to be handling our own money. But people, in my opinion, again, misinterpreted coinage to mean coins, which is not what it meant, because we didn't have lightweight money back at the time when they created the Constitution. And besides that, now we're digital, so there's not even paper money pretty much anymore. Everything's transferred through digital ways, ACHs, Zells, and other wiring of digital numbers.
Remember when $100,000 used to be a lot of money?
A huge amount of money. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
A
Now,
million used to be a lot, right?
how much? How
A
much?
million used to be a lot.
Oh
and
yeah,
now
yeah.
I'm
Well,
feeling
a million was huge. Was
Yeah.
huge.
It's
I
still
remember
tough
when
for
my dad
people to
earned
get
$5,000 a year and supported a family of 5.
Yeah, 5,000 a year. Right.
For the people who were candidates.
Yeah, good conversation though. Very good conversation.
Yep.
And
Fun.
no real
We'll
solution.
do it again. And Jonna, we hope you come back. We'd love to go over some of those points and have a full discussion about them. So
Yeah, I
thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Jonna.
much for your presentation today.
Yeah,
You're
thank you, John.
Up to.